Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, hockey fans. It is a seasonal 8 degrees Celsius, 47 degrees Fahrenheit in overcast Bridgewater, Nova Scotia today. My name is Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to the Monday, May 2nd edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. We had a pair of Game 2s in NHL playoff action last night, with both of the home teams looking to take commanding 2-0 series leads before they hit the road. We're going to start in Dallas, where the Blues were in Dallas to face the Stars. Game 2 of their series, Stars led that series 1-0. Coming in, St. Louis with a big 4-3 overtime victory over the hometown Stars to take home ice advantage away and tie this series up at 1 game apiece. Opening to this game, very back and forth. You got multiple shot blocks each way, multiple shots going each way. Dallas having a slight edge in the physical game with 3 hits early, and they are able to generate some opportunity off of that. 3 minutes and 36 seconds into the first period, Dallas is on the board. It's Alex Goligoski with his third goal of these playoffs. Jamie Benn and Cody Eakin drawing the assists on that one. A nice backhanded pass from Benn gets to Goligoski. He hammers the one-timer, and it's in behind Brian Elliott. 1-0 Dallas. Less than a minute later, you don't even have time to stop celebrating that goal. 4 minutes and 11 seconds into the first, St. Louis ties it up. Patrick Berglund with his second goal of these playoffs. Robbie Fabry, who I called out on yesterday's episode that he was ready to have a bounce-back game. He did in this game. Robbie Fabry and David Backes, the birthday boy, picking up assists on the Berglund goal. A nice little rush from the Blues. Fabry sets up Berglund on a one-timer. Looked very similar to the Goligoski goal, except the pass wasn't on the backhand. We have a tie game. It's 1-1. The hitting here continues on both sides. Both teams are throwing hits, and it's notable for St. Louis. They scored that goal. The Patrick Berglund goal was St. Louis's first shot of the game at 4 minutes and 11 seconds in. On their second shot of the game, which comes at 7:02 of the first period, so the Stars doing a really good job of keeping St. Louis out of their end, but St. Louis is 2 for 2. 7:02 of the first period. St. Louis on the board again. Their second shot of the game. Their second goal of the game. It's Edmondson with his first goal of these playoffs. Brouwer and Upshaw drawing the assists. Brouwer centering the puck for Edmondson. He rears back and he throws a slapper on net. It gets behind Kari Lehtinen, who did not have a good game. That gets past him. It is now 2-1 St. Louis. The Stars try to start a pushback here after that 2-1 goal. Most attempts that are sent towards the net, though, are blocked by St. Louis. They did an excellent job trying to keep the puck away from their net. Jori Lehtera takes a hooking penalty against the rookie Radek Faksa. No damage on the Dallas power play. You flip that script around. Antoine Roussel tripping Lehtera this time. You put St. Louis on the power play. St. Louis is able to convert in the last 2 minutes. 18:40 into the first period on the power play. It's Troy Brouwer. It's his second of the playoffs. Shattenkirk and Fabry drawing the assists. Now 2 points for Brouwer and 2 points. Now 2 points for Fabry on the night. Point shot from Shattenkirk. Brouwer picking up the rebound on that one. St. Louis now up 3-1 on a very small number of shots. I believe they only had 5 in the period. That means Antti Niemi comes out and starts the second period for the Stars. Of note, this is Dallas's third, I believe, goaltending change in these playoffs. Neither team is really stepping up here and grabbing momentum into the second period, but the physicality does definitely ramp up. There are more hits being thrown on each side. Valeri Nichushkin, who slotted into the lineup due to an injury, I believe. I can't remember who got injured, but Nichushkin had slotted into the lineup. He gets back in there, and he takes a hooking penalty on Vladimir Tarasenko, forcing Antti Niemi to come up big on Troy Brouwer. A huge save. You got to bookmark that one. That could be a game saver. Niemi sliding across with the big save on Troy Brouwer. The St. Louis push gets killed by a Troy Brouwer cross-checking penalty. Brian Elliott making a great save shortly after on a slap shot off the stick of Jason Spezza. St. Louis gears up another big push. They got 4 more shots on net towards Niemi. That gets killed by the same penalty, another cross-checking penalty. I can't remember who took it, but St. Louis killing their own momentum by taking bad penalties here. No damage, though, on the Dallas power play. The door is still open here for either team headed into the third period. It's 3-1, but the door is definitely open for someone to grab this game and just run with it. Dallas kicks that door down. On their 5th shot attempt of the period, 2 of them being blocked by St. Louis, Dallas gets back on the board. 4:35 into the third period, Dallas cuts the lead to 1. It's Janmark with his first of these playoffs, Eakin with his second assist, and Sevier with the other assist. It's a nice little tip pass up to Eakin. Tip pass from Eakin to Janmark. He is sent in on the breakaway, slips it between the 5-hole on Brian Elliott. A great goal, and Dallas is within 1. This crowd finally has something to cheer about. The early third period also shows some penalty trouble, really for both teams taking penalties that really at this point in the game they really shouldn't take. That to me is a sign of nerves, and I mean obviously this is a close game. It's a pivotal game in this series, especially for St. Louis, who do not want to go down 0-2, so there are definitely some nerves coming into play here. But the middle of the third period basically turns into a track meet. Both teams get their chances, both teams are physical, it's up and down the ice. Dallas starts taking the edge back a little bit later in the third. Dallas with 8 straight shot attempts towards the St. Louis net, and on the 8th one, they convert. 17-24 into the third period, final 3 minutes. Dallas has tied this game. It's who else? It's Jamie Benn, his 5th goal of the playoffs. Eakin and Roussel drawing the assists there. A big game for Cody Eakin. That is his 3rd assist. A point wrist shot that gets tipped in on goal. Ben grabbing the rebound, and he basically just turns around and wrists it. Brian Elliott was all basically out of the play, really didn't give himself much of an opportunity to make this save. Dallas has tied the game. In the dying seconds of the third, Dallas throws the final 3 shot attempts towards the net, forcing Brian Elliott to make a couple of big saves. He is equal to the task, and we are going to overtime. For most of overtime, St. Louis is the team that came out, grabbed the momentum, and that was due in no small part to a pair of Dallas overtime penalties. Some of them, I've heard some people say that these are kind of weak calls, especially in overtime of a playoff game. It's hard to argue that, but at the same time, it's overtime, guys. You gotta play discipline. You can't leave any gray area at all. John Klingberg takes a penalty which leads to 6 shot attempts for St. Louis. No damage, but a lot of attempts. Dallas starts to even the play out a little bit after the penalty expires. They get a couple of chances themselves, but then Anton Roussel, I believe for the second time, he takes a penalty, and for the second time, St. Louis capitalizes on it. 10:58 into the overtime period. St. Louis on the power play. It's the birthday boy again, David Backes, his 3rd goal of these playoffs. Steen and Shattenkirk drawing the assists. A point slapper from Steen. Backes picks up the rebound, he tucks it in, and on his birthday, Backes wins the game in overtime for the Blues. St. Louis ties the series at 1, heading back to Missouri for Game 3. Our second game last night saw Game 2 between the Nashville Predators and the San Jose Sharks. San Jose with a big 5-goal outburst in the third period of Game 1, helping them to win that game and take a 1-0 series lead into last night. And they do it again. San Jose wins Game 2 by a score of 3-2. Shots in this game, 39-25 in favor of the losing Predators. San Jose now with a commanding 2-0 series lead. The Sharks hold the early edge in this game in the face-off dot. So they're winning face-offs. It means puck possession. But the chances really are in the early part of this game very back and forth, despite Nashville struggling in the face-off dot. Roman Josi takes a cross-checking penalty on Tierney. The Sharks throw 5 attempts at the net. Pekka Rinne making a huge save on a Patrick Marleau deflection. That's a great way to get yourself into the game early. Between 8:58 and 11:31 of the first period, 8 of the 9 shot attempts in that time period get blocked. 5 of those blocks coming from Nashville, which means your opportunities were 5-3 for San Jose. So they're still getting a little bit better of the play. The physical play really starts picking up here in the late first period. Both teams looking for an edge, and Nashville generates their best chances off of that physicality in the first period. No damage either way. We head into the second, still in a scoreless tie. San Jose takes control of this thing again, opening up the second. 3 more shot attempts at the net. They're all blocked by Nashville, but they do generate 2 shots to the Sharks in the span of about a minute and 30 seconds. So they're getting some opportunities, Nashville playing a little bit back on their heels. Between 2 minutes and 47 seconds and 4 minutes and 8 seconds of the second period, there are 8 hits registered between these two teams. 6 of those 8 go towards San Jose, so they're starting to take the physical edge in this one as well. Nashville, however, is able to generate 3 quick shots. Just some quick hit stuff. You don't need to build huge momentum. You just got to take advantage of your opportunities. San Jose gave them a very tiny window. Nashville generating 3 quick shots off of it. And the block party continues here as well. Not a lot of scoring, but there's a lot of the little things in a game that can help determine it. Between 6 minutes and 36 seconds and 8 minutes and 39 seconds, so just over 2 minutes of game time, there are 8 more blocked shots, 4 for each team. So both teams are really doing what they need to do here. They're just waiting for something to break. What won't break are the goaltenders. Both of these goaltenders stepping up big here in the middle of the second period. Martin Jones with a big save on a Roman Josi backhander, and Pekka Rinne coming up big on a Marc-Edouard Vlasic wrist shot on a San Jose power play. And speaking of a San Jose power play, we have probably one of the more comical moments of these playoffs. The Preds get caught for a too many men on the ice penalty. Roman Josi, in a desperate attempt to avoid this penalty, jumps into what he thinks is his own bench, but it actually ends up being the San Jose bench. And you see everyone on San Jose just stand up, coaches included, trying to get the ref's attention. And they're grabbing Roman Josi and they're not letting him leave the bench, which I thought was really, really funny. It's just one of those cutesy kind of things that you see, despite the fact that hockey is, a very rough sport and you really got to be, you got to be tough to play hockey. You still see some of those comical little moments and you realize at the end of the day, they're playing a kid's game, which is kind of endearing. But Josi jumps onto the wrong bench. They get called for too many men on the ice. And in the last 2 minutes of the second period, something finally breaks. San Jose on the power play at 18:36 of the second period. And it's Logan Couture, his 4th of these playoffs. Pavelski and Burns drawing the assists on the Couture goal. A point slap shot from Pavelski. The rebound is sitting there for Logan Couture, and he makes no mistake. Couture gets the Sharks on the board, 1-0. The third period opens up much the same way as the first 2 periods did. There's hitting, there's shot blocking, but you can tell the game is starting to open up a little bit. Nashville's starting to take a few more chances because they need to. They're down, and they don't want to go down 2-0. Pekka Rinne is forced, based on that really, to come up huge. The Preds are on a power play, so the Sharks are shorthanded, but they generate a shorthanded 2-on-1, which just, again, making my eye twitch. Shorthanded 2-on-1 for the Sharks. It's Nick Spalling. It's Logan Couture. Couture puts it across to Spalling, and a huge save by Pekka Rinne. Earmark that one too, because that could be a game saver in this one. And they generate momentum. They generate confidence. They generate opportunities. And eventually, do the Predators generate a goal? 12:56 into the third period. Nashville ties this game. It's Ekholm with his 3rd of these playoffs. Wilson and Josi drawing the assists. It's a screenshot. Martin Jones had no chance to see this thing. It was a screen wrist shot from basically the top of the face-off circle, right dead center. And I think there's 4 San Jose players directly in the path of the shot. So it was a real seeing eye wrister. I'm impressed that it got through. But Martin Jones didn't see this thing for a second. He had no chance on this at all. Ekholm ties the game for the Predators. At this point, based off the game-tying goal, the play is definitely tilting towards Nashville's side. Martin Jones has to come up with a big save on Colton Sissons, and the Sharks get 3 more blocks in a very short period of time. Nashville is applying the pressure here. But you don't need a lot of opportunity. You just need to make the most of the ones that you're given. 17:20 into the third period. Final 3 minutes of this game. San Jose goes back on top. It's Joe Pavelski. It's his 6th of these playoffs. What a playoff he is having. Nieto and Thornton drawing the assists on this one. The Sharks rush into the zone. Nieto throws a wrist shot on net from the Joe Thornton cross-ice pass. Pavelski picks up the rebound and basically just sort of bats it in, and it jumps a little bit on Rinne. It's in the net. Pavelski has scored, and the Sharks are back on top. The Predators are now desperate. They pull Pekka Rinne down just 1 goal. Now this, if you remember, did not work out for them in Game 1 as the Sharks quote-unquote ran up the score, but they scored a pair of empty net goals. So this tactic really did not work for Nashville in Game 1, and it doesn't work for them in Game 2 either. 19:04, final minute of the third period, San Jose into the empty net. It's Joe Thornton, his 2nd of these playoffs. Couture and Pavelski drawing the assists. Pavelski with a great little bank pass to Logan Couture, who sends it up for Joe Thornton. He's got a clear shot. He makes no mistake. It's into the empty net. San Jose now up 3-1. Now the game's not over at this point. In garbage time, credit to the Predators. They didn't back down. They kept pushing. They pulled Pekka Rinne again because I guess at the end of the day, what's the difference between losing 3-1 and losing 4-1? So they pull Pekka Rinne again. It actually works out on the 6-on-5. 19:56 into the third period. Just 4 seconds remaining in the game. Nashville pulls it back within 1. It's Ryan Johansson, his 3rd of the playoffs. Roman Josi and Mike Fisher drawing the assists. There's a scramble in front of Martin Jones. And Johansson's just basically there at the side of the net, jamming away at it. And he gets it to go in behind Martin Jones. San Jose was about to take a delayed penalty on the play, so that penalty doesn't happen because Johansson scores. But that's your final score. San Jose wins Game 2 by a score of 3-2, despite being outshot pretty convincingly. San Jose with a convincing 2-0 lead, heading to Nashville for Game 3. Little bit of news and notes from around the league before we tee up the only game in tonight's action in the playoffs. Brooks Orpik off of that hit on Olli Maatta in Washington-Pittsburgh Game 2. Brooks Orpik has been suspended 3 games by the NHL for that hit. The league cited the lateness of the hit, significant head contact, Maatta's ineligibility to be checked because of the sort of brief window. You get a little bit of leeway after a player releases or gets rid of the puck if you can't make reasonable effort not to hit him. There's a brief window there. There's some wiggle room. But this was well after that window. It was a full, they said it was a full second or full whatever, full little bit after Maatta had released the shot on net. So he was, quote unquote, ineligible to be checked because he was not carrying the puck and it wasn't within this window. They also cited Brooks Orpik's 2 previous suspensions, and they've suspended him for 3 games. Olli Maatta, of note, is likely to miss at least Game 3, if not more. So we could be seeing a couple of games being missed for Maatta. The Penguins are still being sort of mum on what his issue is. We can, of course, assume concussion, but he's definitely going to be out. There's no way he plays Game 3. Probably doesn't play Game 4. Maybe he's back for Game 5. That'll be interesting. We'll see. But Brooks Orpik will not be back in this series until at least Game 6 if it goes that far. Also yesterday, the NHL announced the Bill Masterton Trophy nominees. This is the trophy, of course, that is given for perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. Your nominees this year: Jaromir Jagr, the ageless wonder from the Florida Panthers, the Rangers' Matt Zuccarello, and the Penguins' Pascal Dupuis, who is, of course, now retired from the NHL due to issues with blood clots, a very similar issue that Steven Stamkos is going through, although obviously Dupuis' situation slightly different because it did force him to retire. So those are your nominees for the Masterton. I think based on sentimentality, Pascal Dupuis will probably win the Masterton, given the fact that he was forced into retirement. But it'll be interesting to see who wins that. There's a lot of support behind Jagr, so that'll be interesting. But those are your Masterton nominees. Who do you think is going to walk away with the Bill Masterton Trophy? Okay, folks, time to tee up your only game in the NHL this evening. It is Game 3 between Washington and Pittsburgh. The series moving to Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh on home ice. Tied up at a game apiece. We are having an 8 p.m. start time. This game is available on CBC in Canada as well as NBCSN in the United States. Braden Holtby and Matt Murray is going to be your likely goaltending matchup here in Game 3. one thing that I did really note from Game 2, the Capitals owned the face-off dot in Game 2. The Caps were 63% in Game 2. Anytime you get 60 or above, you're having a real good night in terms of face-offs. So 63%, it was a good night for the Caps in the face-off circle, but they got outshot 35-24. The story of Game 2 for the Caps is they were just not able to generate. 8 of 18 Capitals skaters in Game 2 did not register a shot. So these guys need not only balance on offense, but they've got to figure out a way. And I understand, like, the Pens defense is playing great in this series. I was going to say just played great in Game 2, but they're playing great in this whole series. So I get it. It's difficult. The defense is not making things easy on you, but the Caps need to find a way to get some balance on offense, and they need to find a way to better generate offense, and it's got to start at the top. Alex Ovechkin had more hits in Game 2 than he did shots on goal. He had 5 hits, he had 3 shots. Step number 1 in fixing what was wrong with the Capitals in Game 2 is Ovechkin inverting those numbers. And Ovechkin's never not going to be a physical player, but he's not a grinder, right? He's a sniper. So invert that. You got to, even if you're just throwing, it's never a bad play to throw the puck on net. Even if you don't think you're in a prime scoring area, it's never a bad idea to throw the puck on net. So Ovechkin definitely needs to invert those numbers. That's where it starts. But again, to Pittsburgh's credit, they're selling out. They're doing what they need to do on the defensive side of things. Nick Bonino had 3 blocks in Game 2. Chris Letang had 5. Ian Cole had 4. Brian Dumoulin had 3. So they're doing what they needed to do. They're getting down. They're stopping those pucks from getting through to their goaltender. He's a rookie goaltender, even no matter how well he's playing. He's a rookie goaltender. These are some bright lights. This is unvisited territory. He's never been here before. So when you got a team in front of you that is selling out to block those shots and keep those shots away from you, that's got to feel good as a young goaltender. Since the series is moving to Pittsburgh, I like the Pens tonight. Remember that I said this series is going to go to 7 games. But I like the Pens tonight. I'll give it to them by a score of 4-2. Maybe that 4th goal is an empty netter. I don't imagine they'll beat Holtby 4 times. But so 4-2 Pittsburgh, that's my prediction for tonight. I like the Pens to take a 2-1 series lead heading into Game 4. All right, folks, that is going to do it for the Monday, May 2nd edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. I've had some really good feedback, actually, from people who have been contacting me interested in having a guest spot on the podcast. So thank you guys so much for that. If you are interested and you haven't contacted me yet, please feel free to do so. I've got my schedule, my recording schedule worked out for the next week or so, and there are some slots available in those times. So if you're interested in coming on the podcast, I'm very interested in talking to you. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Enjoy Pittsburgh, Washington tonight for Game 3. We will see you again on Tuesday.